Part 6 of Ahsoka brought full-on Dathomiri Nightsisters into the story. The credits for the episode list their names as having some Greek mythological influences, so today we're going to talk about the history of the Nightsisters, their inspirations for the show, and what it all might mean for the final 2 episodes. The Great Mother's names are Atropa, Clothau, and Lachesis. They are clearly linked to the 3 Greek fates who were named Atropos, Lachesis, and Clotho. They were the daughters of Zeus, king of the gods, and Nyx, who was the personification of the night. They wound the tapestry of life into a loom, and the destiny of every living being was represented by a single thread. Some Greeks considered them to be even more powerful than the gods because of their knowledge and enforcement of fate itself. The Great Mothers and Morgan Elsbeth in the show have been seen or referred to as spinning threads. They mention Sabine's presence as a loose thread. They seem to use their magic to be able to see and predict the future, or fate. The Greek fates were depicted as women of various ages, from young to old, which connects back to the first episode of Ahsoka and the symbol used to unlock the map. In the real world, it can relate to 3 Celtic goddesses, the Maiden, the Mother, and the Crone. The Fates were also called the Moirai, which translates to destinies. This name is awfully similar to Morai, a convor that's been seen accompanying Ahsoka on various occasions. She's briefly seen in The Mandalorian on the planet Corvus, she was in the World Between Worlds during Ahsoka's first trip there, and in general she just flies around Ahsoka, acting as a sort of spirit guide. Morai is connected to the Daughter, an ancient and powerful Force god that sacrificed her life to save Ahsoka's. I think the similar name is likely just a coincidence, and Morai is a reference to Ahsoka's destiny specifically. The Great Mothers could also be a reference to other groups of 3 witches like the Grey-Eye, who are also part of Greek mythology. They were sisters who shared a single eye and a single tooth between them. They were the daughters of a sea deity named Cetos, which could be where the planet Cetos got its name. They reluctantly helped Perseus learn how to slay Medusa in their stories. There are also the 3 witches found in Macbeth, who made famous the line "Double, double, toil and trouble," which was referenced as the title of Ahsoka's second episode. It's thought that those witches are themselves inspired by the Greek fates or the Norns from Norse mythology, who were also 3 sisters that wove the tapestry of fate. Basically, witches pop up in groups of 3 a lot in all kinds of mythological stories. So what does this mean for Ahsoka? I think it means that the Great Mothers are likely very old and very powerful. The fact that they are seemingly referenced in the first episode is interesting. 3 witches are carved into the ruins explored by Ahsoka. A symbol connected to them is on the floor and is the solution to the map puzzle. Great Mother could be a title passed down through generations, or they might be insanely old. We don't really know yet. I think the next episode will likely show us some of their power because Thrawn requests the aid of their dark magics. We might see the 3 witches unleash their full might on Ahsoka and the Purrgil transporting her. The closest equivalent to something like that is probably in the Clone Wars episode Massacre. The Nightsisters of Dathomir fall under attack by General Grievous. Their leader, Mother Talzin, and an elder named Daka use their power to raise the dead to fight back. Talzin herself uses green magic to attack the droid army directly. Now, how are the witches on Dathomir related to the Great Mothers anyway? We don't fully know yet, but I'll speculate. In this separate galaxy, isolated from groups like the Jedi or the Sith, the Dathomiri probably learned to connect with the Force through spells and magic. At some point, they must have traveled to the main galaxy and set up a colony they called Dathomir. That planet was strong in the dark side and would have been a powerful conduit for their interpretation of the Force. From there, they spread to other worlds like Arcana and maybe Cetos, but of course, they were eventually wiped out. I wonder if the Great Mothers fled back to Peridia, or maybe they remained there this entire time, watching over their planet of origin. But Nightsister culture did not completely die out. Survivors like Marin persisted in the galaxy, other clans of non-Dathomiri witches popped up on Dathomir, and it would appear that Morgan Elsbeth is a practitioner of magic despite not being Dathomiri, at least as far as we know. I was kind of expecting her to reveal her true self at some point, appearing more like Mother Talzin, but now that we've seen her next to other witches, I think she is a human that was adopted into the culture, a child of Dathomir as they call her. After the near extinction of their people in the known galaxy, I guess the Nightsisters are ready to return, along with their dead from the catacombs of Peridia. Balin suggests they are fleeing some rising power, and I believe him, but I suppose they also might want to try to regain a foothold back on Dathomir. I would be cool with that. I love that spooky planet, and I wouldn't mind having Nightsisters around in Force again. It makes sense for them to try right now with both the Sith and many of the Jedi gone. There's not a strong Force-using faction at this point in the timeline, so the Great Mothers could have a chance to take some power in the galaxy. I doubt Thrawn would fully really be in support of that himself. I think at the moment he's allied with the witches because he has no other choice. He needs them to get home, but I don't think he would want a group of witches causing too much trouble for the Imperial Remnant while he wages war on the New Republic. Maybe their alliance is stronger than I think it is, and both groups will truly help one another. I do think it's cool that Thrawn has spent about 10 years working with dark side Force users. In Star Wars Rebels, the Grand Admiral was defeated by the Force twice because he didn't fully understand it and therefore couldn't anticipate it. On Atollon, an insanely powerful Force moose gorilla creature called the Bendu turned himself into a storm and took out Thrawn's army, allowing the rebels to escape. Then on Lothal, Ezra summoned a pod of Purgil to attack his fleet and transport him to Peridia. I don't blame him for not expecting those two wildly unlikely scenarios to happen. It makes complete sense that he would take any chance he got to learn more about the Force, and he lucked out by finding 3 witches who are strong in the dark side. I like the idea that they may have taught him all about magic, which is just one very specific interpretation of the Force. He might incorrectly think he knows everything he needs to know now, or maybe they taught him all about the Force more generally, which would make him an even more dangerous opponent. Before wrapping up, I also want to point out just how cool it is to see Nightsisters so prominently in a live-action project. Grand Admiral Thrawn is rightfully getting a lot of attention as a book character that was created 30 years ago, finally making his live-action debut. But the Witches of Dathomir are nearly as old as he is. They were first created by Dave Wolverton for the Star Wars Legends book The Courtship of Princess Leia back in 1994. He established a lot of the lore that we still know about them today. Their homeworld, their use of magic, the fact that they ride Rancors. Their look was standardized a bit for the Clone Wars, but that animated series still held on to a lot of story elements Wolverton set in place. In that book, the witches initially allied themselves with an Imperial Remnant leader named Warlord Zinj, who rose to power after the Emperor's death, but before Thrawn's return to the galaxy. But he eventually betrayed the Nightsisters, and some of them wound up fighting alongside Luke Skywalker and his friends to defeat Zinj. They regrouped over the years, but would go on to fight against the Jedi in future conflicts, allying themselves with the Imperial Remnant for a time, as well as the Lost Tribe of the Sith. So their partnership with Thrawn and Ahsoka isn't all that surprising, but we'll see how long it lasts. If the story follows similar Legends beats, there could be a betrayal on the horizon, but Thrawn isn't Zinj. I don't see him underestimating the witches, especially after his encounters with the Bendu and the Purgil. I don't think he'd actively try to make an enemy out of the Great Mothers, but maybe they will turn on him first, and then we'd get to see how well he can combat Force users now. But that's all speculation, and Part 7 is just around the corner, so I'm gonna wrap up today's video. Let me know what you hope to see from the Great Mothers in the comments. If you haven't already, please like this video, subscribe to the channel to keep up with all our Ahsoka coverage, follow us on our socials, and consider checking out our Patreon page for video reactions and audio commentaries for every episode. As always, thanks for watching, and may the Force be with you.